No Jesus Collective session this Thursday. However, please look online. You already have, from Reverend Judith, you already have a Palestinian Israeli commemoration of the Nakba, of the catastrophe. Soon you will have, there was a good, powerful, moving commemoration this last Friday, and that will be posted as soon as Reverend Judith gets it to us. It's very much worth seeing. It has a woman from Lebanon started us with a prayer to grandmothers. Then Dr. Mazan spoke to us, give us a history. There was a woman who works in the refugee camps, absolutely worth listening to, and a powerful reading of a poem that was live from the African resistance. So really worth seeing in place of maybe the Jesus Collective session. You could look at that, wonder all of that. So today's quote is from Bell Hook's book, Homegrown, Engaged Cultural Criticism. It's about gentrification. But artists aren't the only marginalized folks controlling real estate. Think about the colonizing roles that wealthy white gay men have played in communities of color. They're often the first group to gentrify poor and working class neighborhoods. Harlem is a good example. Gays have moved in and driven up rents, as have renegade young white students who want to be cool and hip. This is colonization, post-colonial style. After all, the people who are sent back to recover the territory are always those who don't mind associating with the colored people. And it's a double bind, because some of these people could be allies. I just have to add that on colonization, Dr. Mazan reminded us that we are looking now, we are seeing, and please don't turn away from the colonization that we're seeing right this minute, colonization and genocide in Gaza. All right, next we're on to the community reading by Sheila.
Thank you so much, Linnea and Diana. Thanks for keeping us together. So if you would like to unmute, please. Simon Peter said, "I'm going fishing." "Well, come too," they all said. So they went out in the boat, but they caught nothing all night. At dawn, Jesus was standing on the beach, but the disciples couldn't see who he was.
He called out.
Called out.
Fellows.
Fellows, have you caught any fish?
fish? No,
They replied.
And he
said,
said,
"Throw your net on the right-hand side of the
right-hand
boat,
side of the
and you'll
boat,
get some."
and you'll get some.
So they did, and they couldn't haul in the net because there were so many fish in it. Then the disciple Jesus loved said to Peter, "It's the Lord." When Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his tunic, for he had stripped for work, jumped into the water, and headed to shore.
The others stayed with the boat, pulled the loaded net to the shore.
They were only about
They were only about 100 yards from shore. Waiting
They
for
got
them.
When
They
they
got
got there,
found
they found
breakfast
breakfast waiting for them.
fish
Fish
cooking
Cooking
over
over a charcoal fire
and
and
bread.
some bread.
Bring some of the fish you've just caught, Jesus said. So Simon Peter went aboard and dragged the net to the shore. There were 153 large fish, and yet the net had not torn.
Now,
Now,
have
breakfast,
breakfast,
Jesus
Jesus said. None of the
One of the
disciples
disciples
dared
dared
to
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 ask
ask him,
Who
Who are you?
you?
They
They
They knew
knew
it
knew
was
it
it
the
was
was
the
the
Lord.
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 Then
Then Jesus
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 served
served the
served
bread
them
and
the
the
bread
bread
and
and
the
the
fish.
fish.
This was the third time Jesus had appeared to his disciples since he had been raised from the dead. After breakfast, Jesus said, Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, Peter replied. You know I love you. Then feed my lambs, Jesus told him.
Jesus repeated the question.
Simon,
Son of
Son
John,
of John.
you love
do
me?
you love me?
Yes, Lord.
Yes,
Lord,
Lord.
Peter
He
said.
You know I
said,
love
You
you.
You
know
know I
I
love you.
Take care of
And take
my
care of my
sheep,
love
sheep,
Jesus
sheep.
said.
Jesus said.
said.
A third time he asked him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt that Jesus asked the question a third time. He said, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you.
Jesus
Jesus
said,
said again,
Tend my sheep.
my sheep.
Go to Pastor David.
Yeah. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Shella. So you have noticed that, we typically open with music and we didn't today. I want to share a song that I like. I guess enjoyed is maybe an inadequate word, but I learned this song several years ago, uh, and I sang it a few times with my son Jared's band at Church for the Nations in Oxnard. And at that time, I feel like I was singing it for some of the people, not all, but some of the people in that church. And then while we were still in the US last month, we spent some time at Jared and Jesse's house. And Jared asked me if I had a song, and I didn't. And I hadn't planned on doing any singing, feeling rusty. But this song just popped in my mind. And by the way, it's not original, it's a cover. And as I thought about who this song would be for today, I began to see a picture emerge like a Polaroid. And let me say that to set it up, when I was a UCSB undergrad, Santa Barbara had a thriving African American community, but not so much now. Now, most of the pastors, I think all of them except for one that I know, Reverend Ficklin, commute from either North County or Ventura County because there are not enough people in the churches to sustain these historic communities that were once filled with people and they helped create the city. Before my time, the east side of Santa Barbara was Black Santa Barbara. But even when I lived on the east side, I lived on the east side on Blanchard Street. Even when I lived there, it was largely Black. The reason I was living there is because I had kind of depleted all of my grants and everything, and couldn't afford Isla Vista. And because of a connection a church connection that my parents had, there was a woman who lived there. She was a widow. Her husband had passed away, and an African American woman lived in her house by herself, and she made it very accessible for me to live there, very affordable. But in that place, I witnessed Santa Barbara's gentrification in real time because her name Sister Radford, because Sister Radford, she, I lived on Blanchard Street, and she owned the house, and she received basically an offer she could not refuse. And when I say could not refuse, I don't mean just like her eyes lit up. Property taxes had gone up. And she was living basically on Social Security. She was working as a domestic worker to supplement that, but it became unaffordable. So she took what looked in that moment to be, quite a bit of money. In retrospect, it was not at all. And to me, I watched her sell her house, and I ended up the last few weeks of my senior year living with my parents in Oxnard and commuting back to Santa Barbara for school. And that's just one example of how why the East Side is no longer Black Santa Barbara. And I have questions like, will a school like Santa Barbara High School ever again produce world-class athletes who are African American? Like Philip Pipersberg, the late Philip Pipersberg, who ran in the '86 Olympics. There are athletes from Santa Barbara High School, Black athletes who were in the NFL, that's the Football League, the National Basketball Association. One that I would mention is Sam Cunningham, who Sam Cunningham changed the face of college football more than anybody since Jim Thorpe at the beginning of the 20th century. Sam, I don't want to really get into the story much right now. You can research it on your own, but he ended up graduating from Santa Barbara High School and went to USC. It's a really dramatic story of basically upgrading the whole country. And then later, his younger brother, Randall Cunningham, played quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles in an era when it was questionable whether Black quarterbacks had the skill or the intelligence to lead a team as quarterback. This gentrification of Santa Barbara is a story that's mostly been overlooked. So I wanted to share this song with you because over the past few years, you have become some of my most trusted friends, as Linnea was saying at the outset. The song is titled Don't Want to Know, but I believe that you do want to know. And before we listen, 4 years ago, Planned Parenthood of California Central Coast held a vigil on the very day that the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. And in my speech, I pointed out that we would not likely have had to be there had the same outrage had been expressed as the John Roberts Supreme Court frayed voting rights beginning years earlier. If we would have had that kind of national outrage over voting rights, that specifically impacted Black people in America, it's likely that we would not even have had a president to make those kind of Supreme Court appointments. I say all of that to say that I think that African Americans largely represent the country's immune system. And Santa Barbara may have compromised its own immune system. So I'd like to dedicate this song first to Black folks who have lived or do live in Santa Barbara, and to you, our friends here on Zoom. I entrust this song. This song, again, it was in my son Jared's studio last month. I'm singing, Jared's playing piano, and Matthew created the visuals, which include commonly recognized parts of Santa Barbara and some that are personal for my family. So take it away, Matt. Don't want to know. I hurt so many nights, cried so many hours, trying to make it right. Just didn't have the power. You ignored all my tears in hopes they'd disappear. I tried to let it show, but I guess you just don't want to know. I came to you in love. I came to you in earnest. Could you possibly explain why the flames, why the furnace, just needing to get it clear? I was hoping you would hear. I tried to let it go, but I guess you just don't want to know. Now it's true that God is always there. He said he'd never leave, but at times a human touch is what I need. And if I had a dime for every time I tried to call your name, some tell me I'd be wealthy. But I learned that I could cope. I discovered I could make it. In nights so long and cold, so cold, you don't know how cold. I learned that I could take it. Now I wouldn't change a thing, not for the knowledge that I've gained.
mind that I could grow, really did. I tried to let it show. I tried to let it go, but I guess you just don't want to know.
Well, we'll have a moment for our small groups, and I'll see you in a moment.
Great. How about you, Dr. Dave?
Good. Is Linnea in another room?
Yeah, we always are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I've noticed. So she's not even in the same group.
The last couple,
I'm
the last
here.
couple,
Oh,
yeah,
you're
the
in our
last
group.
couple weeks we've been in the
Okay.
same square here.
I'm just trying to recover from that song.
Oh, wasn't that amazing?
Wow.
Hmm.
Dr. Dave, our dear friend Ernie's right here too, but she's not on screen.
Oh, okay. Hi, Ernie. Good morning. Doesn't Ernie live in Los Angeles?
Yes.
Yeah,
Los
she
Angeles.
sometimes has some difficulty.
Yeah.
There I
There
go.
you go,
There
Ernie.
you go.
Thank you. You're right. I do have difficulty and I'm having a hard morning, so I'm in bed.
Oh,
Okay,
But the
well,
song really was perfect. So, can you hear me?
oh
we
Uh-huh.
yeah.
hear you.
That Matt's
So
video
it's,
was phenomenal.
you said
Yeah,
what?
it was. I only lived in Santa Barbara for 6 or 7 years, but that video just made me shoo, just filled.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great.
Well, I'm glad I know. Definitely something I didn't know. I read Buddy Gibson's book about how that gentrification happened in Tortilla Flats in Ventura.
Mm.
Because I'd heard the words and thought I understood the process, but wow, it's devastating.
Pastor, when you talked about Sam Bam Cunningham and Randall, uh, as you know, when I was in UCSB, I worked at Safeway on De La Vina for years, and their aunt Sarah shopped there and got to be really good friends with her. And he wasn't a great athlete, but you remember Bob Big Man Pointer? If
Yes.
you're on that, yeah. Well, she was buying lots of groceries because she was the mom of Big Man Pointer.
Yeah, it's interesting. He was big enough to tip the scales, if you will, for the front line. The offensive line of Santa Barbara High School was the largest front line in the country. Not largest high school, larger than college and pro teams.
Unbelievable.
I don't know where it is. For a long time, I had the picture from the news press with the four of those guys up front, and they
Wow.
were over. It was over 1,000 pounds if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. Bob was over 400 himself.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Holy cow.
So how's hunting in Cape Town going?
We haven't been. We've been adjusting. Just adjusting, taking care of business. I picked up a couple of prescriptions. Just so we haven't really had the time, or anyway. When I say we haven't had the time, we haven't made the time because we don't want to push ourselves. So
Yeah.
our last conversations over the past couple of days have been, we might not here, but somewhere we might rent for a while because we've never lived in a big city. And we feel like it might be rash to make a decision. Diane was overwhelmed when we were staying with Charity with San Diego, and Cape Town is 3 times the population of San Diego. So, yeah.
Oh, so it's really big.
Yeah. So close to 4 million people.
Yeah.
Whew. Yeah, that'll give you a chance to hear people talk about, excuse me, got a frog in my throat this morning. Anyway, to hear people talk about the various sections of town, and
Yes.
you kind of have more of a chance to get inside scoops about stuff.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
I was thinking,
Go ahead.
Is
I
it
was
as
just
spread?
thinking, I said to Linnea last night real quickly that you probably have a lot of time on your hands that you wouldn't in Santa Barbara. You were so involved in all the community stuff in
Yeah,
Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
that's for sure.
I started
Yeah, but it
feeling the
takes,
relief while I was still there, because when I stepped away from those things in the final, few months, I just felt so much lighter.
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
Yeah.
so glad.
But I went to Nakba Day yesterday. There were like over 2,000 people. It was so inspiring. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Was that the one that Judith posted? No, that was in,
No, yeah, that's a
in,
different one.
Ventura, I think. Yeah.
not sure where that
Oh,
was.
that was West Bank, I think Judith
Okay.
posted
Yeah.
on video.
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Hi, Diane.
Hi, Brandon.
Welcome back, everybody. Yeah. We were just finishing up in our small group. I hope yours was healing and inspiring. I was just talking about, we went to Nakba Day. I was in downtown Cape Town with about 2,000 people. Very inspiring, but that's not what I'm talking about today. So we are here again in many rooms, different towns, different continents. And today I would like to have you visit with me a very different shore. Just after daybreak, the disciples are out on a fishing boat after the cross, after the empty tomb, after the times the risen Christ came to them in a locked room. They have gone back to fishing. They have worked all night and caught nothing. Let's go there, because that is where today's story begins. And it's where many of us are. The disciples went back to the boats, not because they had lost faith. They went back because they didn't know what else to do. They were tired. They had lived through the worst week of their lives. They had seen the corpse. They had seen the empty tomb. They had seen the risen Christ in a locked room. And after all of that, they still went back to the work that they knew. And I understand that. I think you get it. There is a tiredness that comes from doing the work for a long time. There is a tiredness that comes from believing that the work matters. There is a tiredness that comes from casting and catching and casting and catching until one night you cast and you catch nothing. I have been part of the work against colonization and white supremacy for a long time. I'm 71 years old. I was 2.5 when Ghana raised its flag. I was 35 when Mandela walked out of prison. And I have spent most of my life in rooms where I was often the only Black person, dropping hints, making space, waiting for the people next to me to do what I believed they already knew was right. And I'm tired in the way that the disciples were tired. Not without faith, not without hope, but tired. Many of you are tired. You may not have stood in the same boat I stood in, but you have stood in your own. You have shown up for the work. You have driven to the protest. You have held the signs. You have written the emails. You have attended the meetings. You have raised the children. You have buried the parents. You have done the slow work of believing that the world can be kinder than it is. We have fished all night, and there are mornings when the net is empty. But the story does not end at the empty net. Just after daybreak, John tells us, Jesus stood on the shore. The disciples didn't know it was Jesus. He called out across the water, "Dear ones, you have no fish, have you?" "No, we have not." He told them to cast the net on the other side of the boat, and they did. And the net filled up with fish. And then John said, "It is the Lord." And then Peter grabbed his coat and jumped into the water and started swimming toward the shore, followed by everyone in the boat. And I'm fascinated by this sentence. When they had come ashore, they saw a charcoal fire there with fish on it and bread. A charcoal fire was already burning, fish already cooking, bread already there. Before they had cast a single net, before they had earned anything by their morning's work, breakfast was already on the fire. Jesus doesn't put them to work on an empty stomach. He says, "Come and have breakfast." That is the first word from the risen Christ in this story. Not go, not do, not prove yourself. Come and eat. So hear this, my friends. Feeding comes before sending. We are fed before we are asked to feed others. Breakfast comes first. So if you have showed up to your screen weary this morning, here's the gospel. The fire is already lit. The bread is already on the coals. Breakfast is already there. Before you cast another net, before you answer another question, before you do another thing. But breakfast is not the end of the story. After they had eaten, Jesus turned to Peter and he asked him a question. He asked it 3 times. "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" 3 times. Now we have to remember something. The story does not pretend something that had happened earlier The story doesn't pretend it didn't happen. You see, on the night that Jesus was arrested, Peter said 3 times, I do not know him. I do not know him. 3 times he said it. He said it standing by a charcoal fire in the courtyard, warming his hands. 3 times he denied his friend. And now on this morning, the risen Christ has lit another charcoal fire, same kind of fire. And by this fire, he asks the question that matches each of the 3 denials. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? And Peter says, yes, yes, yes. But by the 3rd time, he's hurt. Peter felt hurt because Jesus asked him the 3rd time, do you love me? And of course he was hurt. Do you love me is addressing that moment of denial. It is naming what happened 3 times until truth has been told. Jesus does not skip the truth telling to get to the new beginning. Healing comes through naming what happened. The denial is not pushed aside. The betrayal of relationship, the breaking, the fragmenting of communion is not pushed aside. It is met slowly next to a fire that remembers. And this was not a reprimand. This is Jesus telling the truth with him. There's a difference. And the difference is that truth telling ends with here, it ends with take care of my sheep. So I need to name something this morning. If I don't, everything else I will say will sound hollow. This last year, I have been asking a hard question in my own heart. I have asked it of friends I have walked beside for years. I have asked it of pastors. I have asked it of churches and other faith communities. Do you love what you said you loved? Do you love what you said you loved? Do you love what you said you loved? And this question has come up most sharply over Gaza. Gaza has been a charcoal fire for the community. It has revealed what we love, what we fear, and whose suffering we have been trained to explain away. Jesus doesn't ask Peter, were you careful? Did you protect your relationships? Did you create unity? He asks, do you love me? And love does not look away from children under the rubble. Love does not look from a detained child. Love does not look away from victims the powerful would rather forget. The lamb slain from the foundation of the world. I think of little Hind Rajab, 6 years old, alone in a car after her family was killed, calling for help on a phone for hours while the world listened and did not come. Then the paramedics who went to her rescue were killed. 12 days later, their ambulance was found next to her car. Her name is Hind. And the people I expected to say her name said nothing. Some of the people I had stood with for years answered with silence. Some changed the subject. And I've had to learn something painful about the home that Diane and I left. In a town like ours, power does not always have to give an order. Sometimes the donors are the weather. They don't have to say, don't speak. The institutions already know which way the wind is blowing. The synagogues knew. The churches knew. The supervisors knew. The foundation knew. And the people doing good work with the foundation's good money knew also. They knew that to speak clearly about Gaza was to risk the work they were trying to do for the poor of our city. And that is how the silence is constructed, not by a command, not by a climate, not because everyone was cruel, not because everyone had stopped caring, but because the air had taught them what could be said and what could not be said, and who would pay the price for saying it. And that's why this hurts. Because silence is not always empty. Sometimes silence is full of calculations, full of fear, full of grants and friendships and reputations, full of all the little things that teach good people how to look away. But the charcoal fire tells the truth. The denial happened, the silence happened, and it does not go away just because we pretend it didn't happen. But, and this is the gospel, Jesus doesn't stop at the question. After Peter says yes, Jesus says, take care of my sheep. In other words, the assignment still stands. The sheep are still hungry. The world is still on fire. The charcoal is still warm. Tend my sheep. And I want to honor the ones that I know who tended. The students at the Liberated Zone at UC Santa Barbara who slept in tents. Some were arrested. I want to recognize Diane, who prepared food and took it to them. And the few social media warriors who refused to look away when the story was hard. First Congregational Church, the Mary Collective, the ordinary people without microphones, without titles, without power. They were not silent. Sometimes they were silenced, but they were not silent. Like you all, beloved community, Jesus Collective, we're not silent. Sometimes we are silenced. There is a difference. So, what does this story ask of us today? First, it asks us to come to breakfast, to let the Spirit feed us before sending us. The work has been long, the night has been long, the net has come up empty more times than we can count. Come and eat. There is bread on the coals. The fire was lit before you arrived. Second, it asks us to let the truth be told, not to skip it, not to pretend the silences didn't happen. Telling the truth is not the same as putting someone down. It is the slow work of love refusing to lie. And then third, it asks us to receive the assignment again. Take care of my sheep, wherever the sheep are. The hungry are still hungry. The detained are still detained. The bombed are still bombed. The silenced are still silenced. The work has not stopped because for Diane and me, the work has not stopped because we don't live in the same place. The work has not stopped because we are tired. The work has not stopped because some who said they loved us went quiet. For Diane and me, caring now means tending from across an ocean. It means preaching to a Zoom screen on Sunday morning at a distance. It means writing. I'm finding my voice on Substack. It means writing from Cape Town. It means loving the people of our collective from a new place. So here's the gospel for tired disciples. You have fished all night. You have caught nothing. The net came up empty. The friends who said they loved you went quiet when it cost them something. You have left the place where you thought you would always live. That's us. We're in a new room in a new city, wondering whether the work was worth what it took. And then just after daybreak, the risen Christ is already on the shore. not to reprimand, not yet to send us out, but to feed us. Diane and I need this. So we're having our breakfast, if you will. And then when we have eaten, when the bread has settled in on us, the question will come from Jesus. Do you love me? It will come 3 times because the denials perhaps were 3. And we will say, we have fished all night. The net is empty, but the breakfast is already on the fire and the work still stands. I say to you, come to breakfast, my beloved. We have sheep to feed, right? Well, Robina is here, but she wasn't sure she was going to be able to, so I invited a friend, Dr. Webb Mealy, who moved from Santa Barbara and lived in Santa Barbara way longer than me. But Webb, he lives in Philadelphia now. And I invited Webb to come and get this moment going.
Well, I don't know your custom, but I will do my best. I took a few little notes. Some of the things that came across more than once was healing comes through naming what happens. And sometimes people, including me, don't follow through with love that we believe we've committed ourselves to, but there's some reason why we draw back when it begins to look costly or we don't know what to do. So, see, one of the lines was, silence is full of calculations. I know that for myself. We had a little mini kerfuffle in my church where somebody wrote this email to everybody complaining that we were moving too fast towards interculturalism. And it's like, my first reaction was, wow, this is so passive aggressive. Why don't you just come out and say, I'm not into it, rather than we're going too fast? It reminded me of, I guess it's Martin Luther King used to say, the white people are always saying you're moving too fast, when really they just like things the way they are. They don't want to move in the direction that justice requires at any pace, whatever. So that's essentially passive aggressive, right? Non-cooperation, using excuses would be a good example, definition of passive aggressive behavior, right? So, but anyway, for me, I'm sitting there watching this thing and I'm thinking this is dishonest. This is going to be hurtful, but I didn't know what to do because I don't have a relationship. I'm new in the congregation. I didn't have a relationship with the person established to where I can actually talk with them about this and the dynamic. But also the person who was mostly affected, the pastor, who is Pastor Lenise Pinkard, whom you will be hearing from this coming Sunday. It will cost her, and I didn't know how to protect her. This is interesting because it kind of like parallels Peter, because he was supposed to be, in his own mind, he was like Jesus' bodyguard. I'm sure he felt that way. I'm Jesus' bodyguard. And yet when the Lord wouldn't let him like act out in violence to protect him, he found himself like tagging along behind the group that was arresting Jesus, didn't know what to do. And like he just tripped over himself and ended up failing himself. So that's the context of Jesus talking to him after the, what do you call it? After the resurrection. And the three, do you love me? And Peter's like, you know, I love you. I don't know how to show it. You wouldn't let me show it the way I had it in my mind I was going to do it as your, trusty bodyguard. But so it's wonderful that when you have not done what was necessary, and maybe you don't even know how you failed, you just know it didn't work. Uh, but Jesus invites you and says, let's start over again. I love it because the thought I had was like, Jesus, Jesus cannot have Peter trying to defend the sheep with the same mentality as he was trying to defend him, right? He That's not gonna, in his own strength, in his own ideas, he can't do it that way either. So he basically, the reminder of his denial basically says, you need to learn a new way, and maybe you will not know it until it comes to you, this new way of being pastoral and protective. But all I need for you to do is hang with me, feed my sheep. So that's about it. Like truth without reprimand. That's so wonderful. I love that phrase. Like, how do we do that? How do we challenge each other to be better without being accusatory, without being shaming? That's a great pastoral gift. And if all the disciples can learn that, how to tell the truth without being accusatory and without being shaming, we will give each other the best path to come forward and learn rather than shrink back in self-hatred or defensiveness. So that's my comments, just off the cuff. What's the next thing that happens? Open the floor for anyone else who has thoughts and reactions.
Yeah, but since Robina is here, thank you for that, Webb, for your insights. We are richer for them, and we might as well hear from Robina. I think that would be a good move.
Well, thank you so very much for inviting me. I did not want to miss this because I was curious what you had to say from a distance. And for me, physical distance has not mattered in my relationship with you and Diane and with the beloved community. But what I do want to acknowledge is all of the time leading up to what you had to say today. I'm sorry I had to miss the earlier part. I was wondering when the tears would come, when the grief would show, because all the times that we met, I think a few people cried. I think Diane did on camera, but it didn't quite seem the weight of your moving away, of this change that is quite drastic and traumatic, when it would show. And it's really similar to what the disciples were doing after. Here's the Savior, here's the leader who is gone. And they don't expect him back. And there, as you said, and normally I take tons of notes, I didn't want to today. And here they are, as you said, going back to doing what they knew best. And I think that's always a refuge for us. That's our comfort zone. I think all of us feel that in the past year or so. My family and I have felt it, particularly since we've moved. We've moved from Santa Barbara to a different place that was just as beautiful. And then from this beautiful place that we very silently have been moved out of to a place that's not considered so wonderful. And some people find it wonderful, especially the rich African American history of Antioch. So I can relate to it, but I am so happy to be able to see the repressed grief and the realization and the acknowledgement that this huge change has happened, which then begins to help us to adjust to what this means, because distance, face-to-face interactions substituted by something else do matter. They can substitute, but there is still something that is missing. And we have been learning through this beloved community on Zoom to create something much more significant in place of where we cannot meet together. So I want to thank you for being able to see you cry, for being able to see you grieve, because then it is a time to move on. So I'll stop there.
Ben, I will just respond to that by saying, um, this goes back to what I was saying about, being a college student at UCSB and living on the East Side, and watching the gentrification happen. Part of it is me not understanding intellectually what was going on. I understood better in retrospect, but it wasn't all an intellectual perception. Part of it was me not allowing myself to feel the reality. Sometimes a thing can be happening in any of our lives, particularly I'm speaking of myself, and to not feel it feels safe, feels like, or maybe it's just, if nobody else is expressing grief around this thing, then maybe it's the order of the day. Maybe it's the way things are supposed to be because nobody's saying anything about gentrification, about this woman having to sell her house and move to Bakersfield. So a lot of these recent days for me, just like even I'll lie in the bed and I am actually feeling things that happened years ago. I don't know if that makes sense. And these memories are coming up. And then the video that you saw, pardon to Matt Lowe, he could hear the music. And I didn't give a full description of the video. But there were places that our family lived in that video, where our kids grew up, that were included. And so we are processing all of this. I just asked Matt to create a video to go with the song, and it was his creative mind that went around town taking pictures and putting that together. So yeah, we are processing it. Yeah. So you see some hands.
Reverend Judith's hand's been up a long time.
I just wanted to respond to how I felt when you read Feed My Lambs. And I thought about Peter, cutting off the ear of the soldier and trying to defend Jesus, and Jesus just assuring him that if you love me, you'll take care of the children. If you love me, you'll take care of the people. And so thank you for that. I think it was just the recognition in your voice vibration, It was just something that was in the way that you were expressing it that made it really, really clear for me, that we're here to make breakfast, for the next generation first, and then each other, kids and elders first.
Thank you, Judith. Who was next?
Michael was next.
Okay.
And then Clint.
Clint, no, you're going to be part of what I talk about. So I do want to say this. I'm going to really try to stay under 2 minutes here. I want to apologize. Lene and I both feel a little bit, not a little bit, a lot of remorse. We've taken up way too much airtime promoting our community, which is the VC defensive community. And I want to just say, there's somebody here on this screen who in Orcutt, in that area up there, for years has been going to Vandenberg and standing up against nuclear armament there. Scott Pina. He's been up there for years.
Yep.
Scott Pina writes op-eds in the newspapers to alert the community. He's a justice. This man was a policeman in Philadelphia, and he is a social justice warrior here. Thank you, Scott. And I just want to say, some of the other people here. Clint has been so active on social media and in the community. In fact, I think he's gone to Vandenberg and been on the corner with Scott at times. He did. He just got muted. He just got suspended from social media because he's been telling it. He's been telling it like it is.
You must be doing something right.
That's right.
Our own beloved Diane Fox here how many people has she influenced by her book on Agent Orange in the Vietnam War? Oh God, let me see this. I mean, Matt Lowe, a community leader in the resistance against social justice. Rosie, who's not here today.
Rosie's here.
She's here.
Oh, is she? I didn't see her. Rosie is the person who led us to VC Defensa. And Rosie, I noticed on your, oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean, I meant Ana Rosa. Oh, Rosie.
Oh, yeah.
Rosie is the matriarch. I mean, contributing Hasmin and Joaquin to what they do in social justice. She is a lioness. And I mean, Jacob
and Bonnie. Yeah.
Let me just say, Jacob and Bonnie are away celebrating their 3rd wedding anniversary.
Awesome.
Jacob and Chelsea, that is. Jacob and Chelsea are away celebrating anniversary number 3. And many of you were around when that happened.
Yeah.
So, if you get a chance, send Jacob and Chelsea a message or something. All right. Sorry about that. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
Okay. And then just in conclusion, I'm going to take up a tiny bit more air because you talked about breakfast and about being there for the breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You guys know that Leo and his mother were invaded at 3 a.m. They invited us for breakfast Saturday morning. We spent the better part of the morning at their house. These people who were traumatized, they served breakfast to Linnea and I. That's all.
Man, God bless you, Michael. You are such a warrior. I love you.
Thanks.
Pastor Moore, thank you for this today. And you were sharing some things that really kind of hit home for me. And when you were talking about, you start to understand who people are, when you share how you really feel about things, about the truth, about what Jesus spoke on. And you start really calling other people that claim to follow Jesus on things. And they're not who you thought they were. I don't know if some of the people here know me because I came here right after prison. But before I went to prison, I had went to prison. No, but before I had went to prison, I had actually went to a Christian program. Then I wasn't Christian. I became Christian, and I actually ended up working at that program. That's where I met Pastor Moore. And inside of that Christian facility, as I started applying Christianity, because I was also in recovery, so to me, Christianity should be an action, not an idea. And so I applied my Christianity, because that's why I followed Pastor Moore, because I watched Applied Christianity, where you can question beliefs if they don't coincide with what your moral compass is telling you and what Jesus said. Come on, I'm going to question it then. And so watching somebody able to challenge was why I followed, because I believed in that. And during this last election, a lot of those friends I had from that Christian community are not my friends anymore. They said I was blasphemous for some of the things I was saying. And to me, I just, God bless them. If that's your belief, I don't want your Christianity. I don't want your brand of Christianity. How about I don't want anything to do with it? And God bless you. And unfriend, right? Like that. But I have a community here of people who don't shy away from the hard facts and truths. I love when Robina calls us on crap that we need to be called on. I like when people will say, "Hey, you're sounding awful white, bro." Okay, my bad. You know what? You know what? Like, I don't understand, and I should never say I do understand. I can tell you what happened to me and anything oppressive that may have occurred to me, but I can't tell another person of another race I get it. That would be a damn lie. But you know what? I support you. That's what I do. And I support your humanity, and I see you. So that's what I can do. And so I love you, Pastor Moore. And I'm just gonna say this again. You look 10 years younger. Keep doing what you're doing.
Hey, Clint, I need to tell you that yes, you've been banned on social media, but I took a clip of you and put it on my Substack, and it's catching fire. Yeah,
Yes.
Matt Lowe.
Matt Lowe.
And then Shella.
There we go. Sorry. Yeah, I mean, truth telling. Let me step into this lane real quick because that's reparations right there. Um, yeah, for truth telling, shame cannot beat shame, or shame cannot beat shame-inducing systems. So shame cannot defeat shame. And I guess to take it to Jesus, only love can do that. And so I think like I hear that the quote that Webb named. Webb, what's up? So good to see you, brother. That there's always calculations happening in silence. And I was like, whoo, that one hit. Because truth telling is the opposite. When truth telling happens, everything is on the table. And there's some preliminary phases before the truth telling, though, and I think they're very applicable to our personal lives. But that's neither here nor there. But like one of the phases that I think that I'm seeing in your grief, Pastor, and in kind of your big move to Cape Town is this phase that they call demonumentalizing. And a lot of people are like, what is that? Like, how do you like wrap your head around that? And when we think of reparations, they're called the satisfactory phases, where it's these 5 different phases: re-education, demonumentalizing, undoing harmful policy, reckoning, and then truth telling. Those are the satisfactory phases. And demonumentalizing is taking down the monuments. And what this does is it takes down the presence of shame. Monuments are a monument to power that is held over, that reminds people of their unworthiness, of their unenoughness, of their disempowerment. And so if the monument is there, then that reminder of shame is still present. And so we take down monuments to erase the shame, because during truth telling, we cannot say our truth if shame is present. So we try to eliminate as much shame as possible before the truth telling takes place. So that's what all the satisfactory phases are for, to lead to that truth telling moment. And so this move to Cape Town was a moment, a phase to eradicate the shame so that the greatest amount of truth can be told. And that's what you started today. That's what you initiated yourself into. And you've initiated yourself into this work for decades now, but just this new era of it for you. And so just see that you are walking the right path. You are walking the path of love. And I was thinking of your message today, and that actually I'll save that for communion. So I'll pause right there. All right, I'll just
All
say that
right,
about
Matt.
truth telling. Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Shella.
So I'm going to try. There's been so many beautiful things said, but I just want to say this because this morning, um, my daughter and I were talking on the phone, and I was preparing to read that, and it was talking about how feed my lambs, and how he's giving them a chance to come back, like you said, 3 times saying that, and then 3 times saying, just love my people. And she was saying something along the lines of this whole supremacy movement and all the things Matt mentioned, all the things. And what Webb said, that sometimes supremacists, they just don't really want to change. So they don't really want to get out of that. And so she was saying that um, there needs to be there needs to be an opening of people just understanding that your history, um, what you've done, you don't have to stick with that, because if you can just understand that you're regular people. You're just regular people. You're not better than anyone, and you don't deserve anyone. That maybe then you could give up. Now, that's not how she said it. You guys know that. But anyway, it's just so beautiful that when the disciples, they didn't actually recognize Jesus there, but they recognized his works. They knew this had to be the Lord. And I'm looking at our church here. Where's the recognition? Where's our church here saying, is this the Lord? What we're doing? Is this the Lord? Because I believe that it's, I don't know, he's been put in a different category, because that is not the Lord. And that's all I want to say.
Shall I have to affirm what you're saying? Just from my experience over the past 2 weeks, I have read responses to things I have put on Substack. So many people have come on and said, I'm white and I never saw this. I never saw it before, but now the cover is being pulled. The mask is slipping. Um, I'm getting some energy from that. So yeah, thank you for that. And here's Elena.
Hi everyone. Gosh, I just appreciate being here. I appreciate your words. I appreciate everyone's words. There's just like so much heart, and knowledge and wisdom and all of that. So just wanted to share my appreciation. Webb, you shared something. How can we tell the truth without shaming or accusing? And that's gonna sit with me. So we need so much more of it. And it needs to be received. And that's an art. So, yeah. And I think it also occurred to me just how much grief is a process. I started writing an op-ed for the Indie this last week on David and Diane leaving, and I'm just sitting on that. But it's just one of the ways to process the grief. What I would really love is for Dr. Moore to write something instead. That would be good. Like
What
what you
what
just
you
shared with
wrote,
us today.
yeah, what you wrote, yeah, maybe at some point, but what you wrote, I thought was very apropos for the moment. And then Like it took me, now we've been here, this is our third Sunday here, and I needed this time to air out, you know, just to be able to reflect the way I did today. And I think for me to write an op-ed will take even more time because that's more public. These are, you all are people that I entrust my heart to. And yeah, I want to thank Michael for thanking, everybody else. I think that's an important piece. So thank you, Michael. I thought I saw
Sorry, I
another.
forgot to say something about our Rosie who's been meeting prisoners in the jails for
Yeah,
ever so many years. So
yeah,
that's all. Thanks,
Everybody
Rosie.
here. Yeah.
yeah. Everybody. That's what this is about. We're not. It's really not a thing for everybody just to show up and serve. So we all
I
serve in our.
also,
Was there someone else?
no, I was just gonna say, I also took down, I forget who said it, but maybe it was you. Do what you do best. Like in these moments when we're called to do, and this monumentalization where we just constantly feel like we're not enough for measuring up. But
Yeah,
like, what do we do best? Yeah.
yeah. If we're not doing what we do best, we're gonna burn out. Get bored with it or something. Um, so
And
And do
uh, go ahead.
and do speak up when people make comments that wanting to stay in that place, like Webb stated, because they're comfortable, they don't want to, they don't want to, push, the boundaries that that we speak up, that we call them out, and depending on what the situation is, um, it can be definitely teachable moments, um, and they're necessary because things are moving fast. Ugly,
True enough.
ugly, ugly things are moving fast,
Mm-hmm.
and people want to stay stuck. They don't want to push the status quo, and I really believe and have believed for all my most of my life, I should say, but especially in being involved in movements and doing that, our white brothers and sisters have to be like Michael and Linnea, like everyone else who are willing to put yourself out there, see, because they don't see our black brothers and sisters. They don't see me and all our other brothers and sisters of color. They don't want to hear what I have to say. And don't make me get down dirty and say it. Clint, Clint, I love you, brother. And it's I love you all. And but it's necessary. It's necessary. And never forget to pray for the men, women, and youth who are in prison, incarcerated, and institutionalized. It's not just here, it's all around the world.
Rosie, you made me think
I
of
love
something that I had was kind of a discovery for me being in South Africa. In the Americas, what we have encountered is that indigenous people and African people are considered less than civilized or uncivilized. Well, here in South Africa, there are still Afrikaners who are white supremacists. They're white Christian nationalists. They're still here, and general population sees them as the uncivilized people. They see them,
Yeah.
they say, oh, we're waiting for them to become civilized. And it's just, I mean, I don't know, that may not seem like a big thing to you, but something clicked in my mind when I heard people talking like this. Yeah.
Can I just quickly say, Pastor, thank you for all the books and the reading material that you send to people in prison. Thank you.
Yes, I've been a recipient of that.
Yeah, that's, you know,
That's
living in
awesome.
Santa Barbara, I was too far away to just jump in my car and go to all the prisons, but that was one way I have been able to connect. Yeah.
It's
So,
appreciated.
yeah.
I think just like one thing I want to make the connection of and uplift in your sermon and your grief is the part in which you named some names without naming names, and I want to name more names a little more specifically in that the Peters in our community, in our midst, or some people would call them the Judases, but maybe they're more like Peters, where they're just like denying in the moment of the pressure, not so much
Yeah.
backstabbing, but just denying in the moment of pressure. These are our fellow environmental justice organizations. These are our fellow funding organizations of our nonprofits. These are our fellow churches, our fellow synagogues, our fellow justice organizations in our community. These are our fellow racial justice organizations in our community. These are our fellow homeless organizations in our community. And so like these places are not far and few. We need to look to our left and to our right, and they are probably there. And they are close to us. I'm not going to name exact names, but like as it's I think we can all do that work ourselves, but just knowing that they're close and the grief in which you've walked intimately with these people, with hope, with change, with love, with your power, and it's not one person's job to move them, but that they are backed institutionally, and they're using institutional power to reinforce that power, that hegemony over everybody else. And so it is endemic in our community.
And see, this is why I show up here every week. I mean, yeah, y'all are special. You're precious.
And Diane Fox has had her hand up.
Okay, I did not see Diane Fox. Go ahead, Diane.
Just a quick bounce, actually, from the Nakba celebration or commemoration. The bouncing off what you just said, when Gandhi was asked what he thought about Western civilization, he thought it would be a good idea.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well,
Michael?
Oh, just real quickly, I wanted to just say, call attention to somebody that he's actually a friend of Pastor and he's a friend of Matt Lowe's, but a person that probably nobody notices around. He's got a group called the Fierce Vulnerability Network, and the guy is Tim Nossinger. He's not one of us, but boy, is he spiritually with us. And he is an unbelievably effective day in and day out justice warrior. Yeah, Tim Nossinger.
well, listen, everybody. Thank you for spending time with us tonight. It's night here. It's like whatever, 8 p.m. to 8:40 p.m. Our body clocks are getting adjusted too, by the way. But Matt Lowe is going to close our time and lead us in communion.
Yeah.
Matt, can I say something really quick? I
Yeah,
just
here.
want to say, Sissy, Pastor Moore, and you got to recognize this, would not be who he is if it were not for beautiful Sissy.
Oh,
You think?
But right by him, I just want to say, give props where props is due.
Facts. Yeah, thanks, Rosie. Communion. People think it's bread and it's wine, but it's way deeper than that. Communion is a table. It's table work. Communion is a ritual that was introduced by Jesus. He knew his demise was coming, and so it was his way of preparing his followers, his disciples, his people. So this was created for him after he left us. So this was for us, and in that work, it was for us to remember. And it was a ritual that was created for us to continue day or week in, week out. But it's for us to sit around a table. It was for the disciples, for the people that were continuing this work of tending to the sheep, to remember their work of truth telling, to remember their work of remembering the humanity of the person sitting across from them, even though they may have been Peter. They may have been somebody that bowed out at the last moment when it was important. They may have been somebody that turned their back. But at this table is where truth telling can happen, where we can be corrected and still be loved, where we can be invited in deeper, even though we may have veered off, where we can come back and still be welcomed with open arms when we have said or done something wrong, where breaking of trust is not a breaking of relationship, it is an invitation to deeper relationship with stronger connections and stronger community around one another. So we see mistakes as not as something to run from at this table, but something to celebrate and bring us closer together. And that is why we value truth telling, because the only shame ceases to have its power when truth is spoken. And so this table is where truth can be spoken. Communion is a truth. Communion is the truth that humanity is something worth being remembered. And that is why we take this wine or this juice or this beer or this water or this coffee. And this is why we take this bread or this tortilla or this pancake or whatever it is in your hand right now. So we remember what it means to gather at this table, to be with one another, to know our power in our truth telling. So remember that as you go this week. Power, truth telling. Amen.